On this episode, we're going to be covering everything from how to build motivation out of a dog that's not motivated, dog aggression issues, reactivity, human aggression, getting dogs in and out of crates comfortably, and much, much more on episode 26 of Dog Behavior Question Tuesday. Hey guys, what's going on? This is Blake Rodriguez, and this is episode 26 of Dog Behavior Question Tuesday. We're gonna jump right into it. We have about 10 questions. They're pretty lengthy, so pardon my lack of reading out loud abilities. First question is gonna be from Casey, or before we even get into that, we'll just show you who we have here. We have Ganji Sky, Diz, Samson, we got Gus, PJ, Maxwell, Soko, Big Timu. If you've been following us on Facebook, Instagram, Periscope, all that, you know his progress is a big deal. Same with Muffin, same with Gus, same with those guys. If you've been following us for a while, he's also done a board and train. They just had a baby, and lots of awesome stuff here, right? If you follow Will Space, my wife is a personal fitness trainer there, and the owner, Will Torres, Maxwell's owner. If you guys watch Bravo, Andy Cohen, The Real Waka, they're best buds, so you might have seen him messing around or playing with that. And you might know me from YouTube. And okay, so Casey, we're gonna jump right into this. So I already know what you're going to say, but I'll ask anyways. I have an almost 6-year-old Pekingese who is starting to bite family members' feet in the middle of the night when sleeping, and when I say biting, I mean drawing blood. Why is this behavior just showing up now, and how can I fix it this way he can sleep on the bed? Okay, first thing, this is the thing, the symptom is just surfacing now, but the root of the issue has been going on for a while, so it's been allowed to build and build and build. Andrew, could you grab me that coffee? That's up top, right? I'm trying to be healthy with this water, but I don't want a cold coffee. So it's been building for a while. Couple things. When you're trying to teach new habits, it's a mixture of teaching what the dog should be doing and how the dog should be acting. And then at some point with behaviors this serious, it must be more than that. It has to be also showing the dog that that certain behaviors are not allowed. The reality is if this behavior is happening in the middle of the night, your dog is probably being startled, and it's kind of more of a reactive behavior, unless your dog is possessive and protective. Your dog should be crated, and if the dog is getting startled, it's probably barking and snapping or doing something. You can look into bark collars, specifically ones that give stimulation electronically versus citronella and stuff. That citronella stuff in other episodes I've explained, that's a little bit more harsh and we don't want to do that. But more than anything, your dog, you don't want to put that dog in a position to be able to practice something when it's not being able to be addressed. So your dog should be crated. That's number one. Number two, let me make sure I stay in here. That dog needs more structure in its life overall. So the dog needs to practice being in place. The dog, the humans, whoever the owners are, needs to practice setting themselves up with tools so that in the event that something happens, they're there to address it properly. That might be a long line. That might be, prior to this, setting up the foundation, working your dog for food and stuff, getting your dog really solid on markers and stuff, so that way when you use that stuff, the dog is already familiar with it, rather than you trying to only implement and use certain things in the heat of the moment, right? So that's really important. And of course, for me, I would suggest everything, starting with a positive reinforcement-based foundation, getting your dog working for food, getting the markers really strong, getting leash pressure really solid, implementing remote collar training, because there's nothing better from a timing point of view, especially when you get to the point where you're not utilizing a leash anymore. And there's so much versatility with a remote collar. You can speak loudly. Having a wide range of communication is something that a lot of tools don't have, and the remote collar is one of them, and that's valuable, especially when you're working with behavior problems such as this, right? And we recommend it for happy-go-lucky dogs too, but especially with this, it's super valuable. Let's see, Bella, if you're a boxer, I have a 5-year-old boxer who is overly protective of me, obeys all commands until a person or dog approaches. If you were to walk her, she could care less who gets near you. Any suggestions? Okay, so yeah, your 5-year-old needs to practice holding a place away from you. When guests come over, your dog should not be around you. Your dog should be over there. Your dog needs to learn how to be outside of the circle and be comfortable with that circle, and knowing that they're not a priority. Stop letting the dog around you here. Stop letting the dog around you here. Your dog can only be protective of something that is in its possession. You're not the dog's possession, right? You guys are companions, and there are rules to all companionships and relationships. The dog has to learn that that behavior is flat out inappropriate. You're not allowed to do that, period. I will make that clear. I will show you what you can do. I will teach that. I will make you good at that. I will teach you how to hold a place. I will teach you how to be comfortable. I'll teach you how to hold a place when I'm working for food. I'll teach you how to hold a place when I'm petting another dog. When guests come over, you will stay. If you break, I'll correct you. You'll go back. You will learn that. You'll be comfortable doing that before I jump into corrections. It'll be known first, right? Then we'll work on state of mind. We'll work on duration. The dog can be good holding the position there. Awesome. Now I expect you to hold that position there when guests come over. You need to be able to see this and not to be concerned. If you're concerned, this is your life. This is how you learn to do that. When that gets ingrained in your head and there's no more expectation, it's like, oh, cool, there's somebody, no big deal. That's when I'll start to properly introduce you to people and then recall you and put you back into place and do all of that stuff. But that could be a one-night thing. That could be a 3-month thing. You're learning how to do this for 3 months when you don't meet the person. This is how you meet. You stay over there, period. I don't need to crate you. You stay in a place, depending on your working level. That's a must. Stop putting your dog in a position where it can be protective or possessive and all that stuff and resource guard. You're not an object. That's not fair to you, all right? Let's see, what else? Procrastinator. Happy New Year. My dog is very territorial and protective of me, especially in the house. Looks like this will tie into the next one. I live with 4 roommates, and he is in the living room with us. He will sometimes growl, charge, lunge at people out of nowhere. I don't want to always have to isolate him when people are in the house because I feel he will never be socialized if I do. He has an e-collar for training, but I'm considering getting him a basket muzzle that he would wear when people are around to avoid the risk of him biting someone. He's a 2-year-old rescue pit bull, doesn't matter. He's almost 80 pounds, so I feel like it would be safer for everyone. Any advice? Thanks a lot. I love your channel. Well, first off, thank you for watching the channel and everything. If you are just familiar with our YouTube, definitely go back through all the episodes and watch those, because you can learn a lot about your specifics and the foundations that you need before jumping into the problem. So when we're looking at behavior problems, those are symptoms of what the problem is. If you're coughing, I'm not gonna fix the coughing by giving you cough drops. All right, look, let me just say that again, because this could be like our 16-second clip for Instagram, right? So we have an Instagram page, but if you're coughing, I'm not gonna fix the coughing by giving you cough drops if the reason you're coughing is because you have emphysema or lung cancer. The reality is it might be a Band-Aid on an amputated leg, but that's not gonna fix the issue. So the coughing is a symptom of the problem. This behavior is a symptom of the problem. So in layman's terms, very short, you need more structure, more rules. You gotta know how to do that. You have to create languages with the tools that you use. That means your voice, that means your leash, that means your body, your energy, spatial pressure, verbal, remote collar, whatever collars you're using, how you're working the dog for food, the resources they control, and all of that stuff, right? So that's that. But going into more specifics after that foundation is set and you wanna have a dog, people need to, let me kind of reread this for a second. I think the muzzle is a great idea. The reality is I don't like to use a lot of muzzles, me personally, but when we're working with clients and we're working with certain trainers that are new and stuff, we prefer that because it's safe for them. The problem that I have with muzzles is that people can easily take advantage and pressure the dog more than needed in a way where it's not fair to the dog. So there's something magical, I think, about the process of, for me anyway, working a dog and knowing how to push enough but not push too much When you have a muzzle, sometimes you can really put a little too much pressure on the dog. But I think for the average client, it's a great idea because you're keeping everybody safe and you're building the confidence that you need before you get to a certain point. The thing that you need to do, though, is you need to stop allowing your dog to charge. Set yourself up for success. If your dog knows leash pressure, if your dog knows how to hold a place, if you've mastered those things, your dog knows how to work for food and stuff, before you're having them the dog introduced to people, he's learning that introduction is people walk around him and do his thing, not over here next to him if he's nervous. He's in place away from it, and he's able to see, or she's able to see, that life can go on around and people are not going to pester her. We have to make her comfortable in knowing that she can do this without it being challenging first, because that's already enough of a challenge. Then you incrementally up the steps to the challenge, right? Let me make sure I cover everything here for you. Has an e-collar for training. Don't jump into corrections with the e-collar. Teach what to do before you teach what not to do. Very, very important if you want to do it right. And you want the remote collar to be fun for the dog and a positive experience, right? I know for some people that aren't familiar with that, they'll be like, well, that's stupid. It's like, no, it's really not. Like, when you train the right way, dogs like love the remote collar and are really enthusiastic. Not only about seeing it, but when it's on, they feel certain sensations because they know what it represents, and also because you're not hurting the dogs, right? Let's see what else. Yeah, so we have 80 pounds, this and that, e-collar. So there's a couple things. Some people will say that growling is a precursor to an attack and you shouldn't correct growling. I think it depends on the situation. A lot of times, for me, I don't like growling as a cutoff cue or saying, hey, that's too much. I'd rather a dog display it a different way. I'd rather a dog get nervous and walk away. I'd rather a dog think about doing it, get nervous and go, no, I'd rather do this, and then I'll reward that, and I'll also advocate and stop the person or whatever it is, right? So for me, I correct a lot of nonsense. If I see that growling and lunging was like at the peak and now the lunging is not happening, it's a little bit of growling, I might try to stop it. If it happens but I see it's declining, I might allow it. The same thing with whining and stuff. If I see it's on the decline, on the way to stopping. But if it's like building up, then I might address it. It really depends on how I read the dog and if I feel that they're aware of that, right? Because sometimes the process is slow and they're on their way to success. So you got to really measure that out. Yeah, and then also after you get to that point, when you have the muzzle on, once the dog is comfortable, the dog is no longer concerned. If you've mastered recall, you can have the dog be released. The dog knows its marker for being released. Your friend can have food. Your friend is not like, hey, and trying to give food. The food is here. Your friend is watching the sports game, whatever, no big deal. And as they're watching that, the dog comes over, takes the food. You recall the dog back, whether that's help with leash, help with remote, place the dog. So you start to build the success, slowly build the success. Oh, I can do that, I can smell. Little by little, you build the duration of that. Little by little, that state of mind that you have on place is the state of mind that you maintain while the dog wanders freely because they can, right? So that's basically where you need to be. So you want to work your dog for food. You want to build that drive. Don't feed your dog any other way but working for things. Get your dog into that mindset and then begin to challenge how you work the dog for their food, right? That's how we build that motivation. They understand that they're responsible. Next one, Jay Furball. Jay Furball, we answered it on the last episode. Let's see what else. Alpha Femme. I have an 8-week blue nose, and my partner and I recently bought him a crate with a divider. We have placed treats inside his favorite toys, but he refuses to actually fully go in. He's gone in once or twice, half of his body, to take a treat, but if the treat is too far in, he won't bother, nor does he bother with his toys in the crate. We aren't sure at this point how to make him feel like his crate is a safe place, and we're trying to avoid just putting him in there without him feeling comfortable. Any suggestions would be greatly appreciated. By the way, we also bought him a dog pen for when we travel and recently introduced it to him over the weekend. We placed his bed inside some toys. He was comfortable by the end of the day, sleeping inside and staying there, some occasional whining and crying. We then locked the gate at night to sleep. Okay, so there's a couple things. What's up? Oh, really? One question, guys, one question. Also, sorry for the second part. I understand the biting. that biting is a normal behavior for pups, and biting has decreased over the past 3 weeks. How old is this dog? Oh, 8 weeks, okay. Has decreased over the past 3 weeks as we've been teaching him to stop biting hands instead of toys. Now my pup plays after a couple of minutes. He starts to get so excited, he's not just biting the toys, he's also biting his hands. Okay, so this is different because you have a very young puppy. You have a dog that you want to focus more on teaching what to do, and you have a little bit more time. You can really build a positive reinforcement-based foundation. You can really build motivation. You can really build drive and get a dog to realize that they're responsible for the choices that they make without so much of a timeline that somebody would with certain behavior problems that you flat out can't allow, right? So there's a couple things. If I'm trying to get a dog into a crate, all the dogs that we teach before we even go into those challenges, we get dogs working for their food, knowing how to take food from me and be motivated about it. We get dogs very, very soft on leash pressure, knowing how to follow the leash the second they walk toward it, pressure is released. That's essential. For most dogs, all that we're doing is when a dog's good on leash pressure, there's a mentality and a momentum where it's like you're going in this crate, there's no ifs, ands, and buts. Here you go, boom, and you go in, right? You go in, good job, boom, I might call the dog out, the dog gets the food. With you have time, and the pen is working out pretty good, no big deal. What you can do is you can feed your dog only when they go inside the crate. Only. And forget the divider. Put it in deep in the crate. Your dog doesn't want to eat. Don't feed your dog treats. Don't feed your dog this. Don't feed your dog that. What I'm going to suggest first, before you challenge a dog where you say you have to go in there to get the food, get your dog used to taking food from your hands. Get your dog used to the markers. Go back in our episodes. I think episode like 9 or I don't even know, 9 or 19 or something. Andrew, who's behind here, is also going to answer a question later, shows how we use the markers. We also explain this on our Periscope. We also explain this on our Facebook and stuff. Get your dog really, really good with that. Following food, free shaping or luring, doing all that stuff, right? Good on the leash pressure, all of that. And then what you're doing is the dog's already good with taking food. Now the dog already knows if you do this, you get this. If you do this, you get this. If you do this, you get this. Then you challenge it and you make it where the dog doesn't get fed anywhere else. The dog doesn't get treats anywhere else. The dog can get food and treats here, right? Inside, you must go in there. And there's different ways to do that. You can have your dog go in. The second the dog goes in, boom, you yes the dog for the food. Or what you can do is you can start it by even having a treat and train. Like there's different ways to kind of do it. You can put a treat and train, which is, it's like a manners minder, basically in the far end of the crate, right? And you can have your dog like do something else other than that. You can have your dog sit. You can have your dog down. You can have your dog shake, right? And the second, if they're used to being released, you would have to teach your dog to treat and train prior. They know if they did this, they can go get the food. What you do is they do that. Yes, you release them. They go in to get the food. Then they come back for more, right? And you keep doing that. You can do it backwards too. You get the dog in there. You might, with leash pressure, bring the dog in there. Don't drag it, but leash pressure, and also a little bit of, hey, you're going in the first time. Look, nothing bad happened. Yes, good job, boom, and then the dog takes food. If you've already built, you hear me? Already built a motivation for food, the dog knows that. They go in, they're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Yes, oh, they heard the yes. Oh, wow, that's what I have to do to get that food? It's super, super easy, right? So that's what I would suggest. As far as the biting, before you go into like corrections and stuff, the easiest form of like a correction is just negative punishment. Negative punishment is the removal of something. So the dog is acting some way or some sort. Nope. That verbal marker, the removal of whatever fun thing you were doing, the dog settles, and then you yes, and you give him something else. So you teach him how to do that. Eventually will come the positive punishment, which is adding some type of correction to stop that. Right? If it gets bad. But right now it's kind of puppy, so you're switching your energy, everything's changing. I recently did a Periscope video with a dog named Kino, who we were doing energy switches with like tug, and like I was showing how to like switch with your body and you change. If you nope and you switch with your body and the dog tries maybe a little bit of this, or you help with a little bit of leash, the dog stops, you acknowledge the timing when the dog stops, and then you yes him again. You're teaching the dog how to kind of change. Does that make sense how I explained it?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Just reiterate negative punishment.
Are you live on there?
No.
Why not?
Just to be where it's like the negative punishment, it's like you are rewarding a specific
Yeah, all right, so that's a good thing too. So the point that Andrew made, put your mic on.
I'll do it and answer the question. I want to. It's gonna go ahead.
This guy, we gotta put him in a crate. He's not listening. So Andrew wanted to make a point, when you're using negative punishment, the removal of something to stop a behavior from continuing or discourage a behavior, you need to be sure that your timing from when you give it back, when you do reward, is you're marking a very specific choice or change that your dog gave. So you have to be good with your timing, okay? And again, we have videos on this, so watch Instagram, YouTube, Periscope, Facebook. Am I missing anything? 4, I think that's pretty much it, right? Yeah. Okay, so that's that. Going into IKEA. Hi Blake, got a question from a friend of mine who doesn't have an Instagram account. Here it goes. When I looked at Muffin's training videos, it looked like he was being trained or rewarded with a treat of some kind. It seems like most trainers now use a motivator of some kind, and it usually is food or a toy. Do you know if a trainer has any suggestions, or if your trainer has any suggestions for a dog that does not respond to a motivator? Charlie does not react to food or toys. He hates liver, bacon, cheese. Well, you get the point. Every year I ask a different trainer at the pet expo what they would do in this type of situation, and they walk away because they don't know. They don't know. It's actually super easy. I'm gonna tell you right now, and you need to stop doing it. Stop feeding your dog everything else. Stop feeding your dog human food. Stop feeding your dog all that other stuff. Your dog eats the food. It's just not motivated because it's not used to working for it. So get rid of the soft food. Get rid of the treats. Get rid of this. Stick to a specific food that your dog likes, or whatever that your dog eats. If it's not eating it, this is the thing. As long as your dog is healthy, as long as your dog doesn't have any diseases, no healthy dog will starve themselves. They will not do it. What they will do is they'll hold out because they're creatures of pattern. They'll go, no, I don't really like that because I know you normally add something to that. Oh, no, if I don't like that, you get this. So instead of being the person that says, oh, he didn't like this, so I bought this food. He didn't like that, then I bought this. Just relax, stick to one food. Forget the toys. You can build a toy drive later if your dog doesn't have it. It's a little bit tougher if your dog is just this kind of dog. With food, you can get them motivated because a dog has to eat. So what you're gonna do is your dog is only going to eat from things that you teach it. Don't have it jumping through a flaming hoop of fire, but teach your dog how to sit, and then yes, teach your dog how to sit and take the food. Teach your dog how to sit, good, and give the food, or yes, to take the food away. The dog comes to take the food. If your dog is not motivated, you can try that for 3 to 5 minutes a day, only twice a day. Your dog does not eat from the food bowl. Your dog does not get special treats. Your dog does not get your human food or table scraps. Your dog only eats this way. Your dog will miss meals because it's conditioned that it's going to get something else. You need to uncondition that and say, hey, listen, I'm not withholding you from eating. I'm not saying you're not going to eat. I'm going to give you 2 opportunities a day every single day for 3 to 5 minutes. If you choose not to, that's fine, but you're going to get hungry. And then you're going to eat. And then you're going to realize how much fun it is. Then you're going to realize that you're actually, as a dog, in control of this. And then you build the drive. We do it with so many dogs here. A lot of dogs come in, well, they'll take food, some miss a meal, some miss a day, because we're working with a lot of American owners who give their dogs everything, right? Oh, yeah, well, actually, that's a good point. He held off out for eating for a little bit, you know what I mean? And there was a lot of other reasons for that, but now this boy eats his food like no other. I mean, he didn't like women. I was only able to work him, Andrew was only able to work him, Ozzy was only able to work him, the Jens couldn't work him. What we did, he stopped eating from us. He stopped being worked by us. He only got worked by Jen, the trainer who's had a little bit more experience, Jen Bianchi, and she worked him. He didn't want to eat, that's fine, that's okay. We'll come back, we'll try it a little bit later. And don't give your dog 4 opportunities a day. Just give your dog 2 opportunities a day. You only have to feed him twice a day. It's all good if they miss a couple meals, I promise. I promise. Another thing you can do too is like, you can Thanksgiving your dog, right? So the concept with that is, let's say your dog's gone X amount of days without eating and it's already on the thin side. It's not heavy, which I don't believe that would be your case, but it's not on the heavier side and really can't afford that. What you can do is you can overfeed your dog for 1 meal, 1 day, get your dog's stomach kind of heavier, or expand it, so that way they feel like they're hungry and they're more inclined to eat when you start to give them food. It's the same thing for us for Thanksgiving. I stuff my face on Thanksgiving Day. I go to sleep because I get the itis. I go to sleep for like an hour and I wake up like I'm starving, like I haven't eaten in like a year, but I just ate it because I expanded my stomach, right? So you can do that also to kind of speed up the process a little bit if needed. More often than not, you don't need to do that. Let's see, this next question is from promotion. It's actually for you, Andrew. I'll read it and then I'll let you get into it, okay? Hey Andrew, I watched your scope on muzzle conditioning Samson. You guys are awesome. You mentioned that you had a new dog who was very stubborn on the e-collar. Unfortunately, my dog was trained by an off-leash company franchise who did not teach any leash and prong foundation before jumping to the e-collar. Now my dog can be stubborn on the e-collar, and I struggle with his body not following when he's fixated. High corrections seem to get him more adrenalized. Yep, that'll happen when trained the wrong way. At this point, and me giving in isn't helping, or you giving it isn't helping. Can you share some tips on how to help fix this? Do you recommend taking a break from using it and reintroducing it to him, and then reintroducing it to him later? Do you guys use AOGE corrections? What?
I think it's like Act of God.
Act of God, yeah. Oh, okay. Well, that depends on what you're doing. Okay. A lot more often than not, people are too quick to hop onto the Act of God for unmerited reasons. But take a seat. I get to play cameraman.
Yeah, so thanks for the compliment. I appreciate it. I mentioned very stubborn on the e-collar. So
Place. Down.
the dog who's bad on the e-collar is very, very similar to your dog. He's not here for board and train. He's actually trained by his own owners. So they may have dropped the ball a little bit in reinforcing certain behaviors, and now they're sort of stuck in your situation. You don't have to take a break, but what you need to do is teach your dog leash pressure and prong foundation, as well as e-collar pressure under not so intense situations. So if you have a stubborn dog like that, what I do is I come in the room in a controlled environment. There's no distractions. I'm very, very, very anal about leash pressure. What you do to turn off leash pressure, I'm very specific about. The way you move your body, I want your head to turn, your body to follow. I get that like nearly perfect under no distractions. Exactly. When I use leash pressure, you do exactly what I want you to do to relieve that pressure. I'm not going to relieve it for like a C plus or a B. I'm getting you to an A plus when I use leash pressure. When you're good on the leash, then I'll introduce the e-collar again and layer over the e-collar, once again in a controlled environment under no distractions, where I know I can get the behavior. And I can be very specific, and I can get exactly what I want. And I'll repeat and I'll repeat and I'll repeat until it becomes a habit. Once this is a habit, you get it around no distractions, you're getting exactly what you want to relieve the pressure. When I use a prong, when I use an e-collar, I'm asking for something, and regardless of even if I'm over threshold or whatever, I am getting what I want to relieve that pressure. I am not giving in, no matter what. If I apply a pressure, it's not coming off until I get what I want. I don't care if I'm over threshold. I don't care if it's hard for the dog. I've applied the pressure already. It's very important that the specific behavior that I want turns it off and nothing else, right? It's a lot easier to do it around no distractions, but once that gets perfect and you're getting the results that you want to turn up pressure, then you can sort of baby step your way into distractions or the things that are harder to get the behavior you want. You baby step your way so you can keep the same success, and you can be sure that you get that same specific behavior to turn off. It's like, what exactly is the problem? I think it's leash reactivity or dog aggression, either or. I would do it from far. Let's see, we see a dog in the distance. The moment your dog gets concerned, I would ask for the behavior or whatever you're asking for to turn pressure off. Let them know, hey, when you see that dog, you still have to do exactly what you were doing. And it should be ingrained so much that it's just a habit already. It's like, oh yeah, I already know what to do. And then you can baby step your way into where it's more and more and more harder for the dog to listen to you. But you know that the dog's learned this. You know that the dog knows what to do. So when you do apply pressure in these situations, you're able to get what you want. Obviously, Out here, you live in New York City, I live in New York City, so we don't always get to control our environment. Sometimes we do go over threshold. In the worst case scenario, you mentioned that you give in, and the absolute worst case scenario, if things don't go your way, whatever tool you're using, whatever pressure you're applying, do not take it off under any circumstances. If your dog's going crazy, keep that leash pressure on, keep the remote pressure on until the dog goes away. So he knows that, hey, that doesn't turn pressure off, but the dog happened to go away and that happened to come off. The worst case scenario, like that pressure's staying on. Make
sure to point out too that like pressure can lower a little. It doesn't mean you need to be like popping your dog at, I guess I have a mic on, so
yeah.
You don't need to be popping your dog at like a 90 and holding that while, you know what I mean? It could be enough and you can help more with leash if needed. You gotta, whatever the dog knows more, you can use more in that situation, and levels can be held on while lowering or raising. So you have to lower and keep it on so you know the dog feels it, but then the leash is showing, hey, look, if you do this, that's what shuts both of them off, then you can do that. That's fine.
The main thing here is if you're gonna apply pressure, get the behavior that you want, or you know, make sure that you're not releasing pressure for the behavior that you don't want. Because that's where a lot of people mess up, and that's where aversives get a bad name from, is people go over threshold, they apply pressure, they don't get what they want, and they relieve pressure for the total opposite thing that they wanted the dog to do.
Great point.
And all of a sudden it's like, oh man, I learned that lunging at a dog and attacking turns pressure off. I know how to turn it off. So that's exactly why your dog gets aggravated. He's like, I need to go harder and I need to go stronger at this dog to turn pressure off. And you want to teach your dog that it is the opposite that turns pressure off. So that's why it really helps to do it around no distractions and build the habit. And the dog starts to learn, oh, okay, turning off pressure is the exact opposite thing that I thought it was. It's actually turning off of it, right? And not facing it and doing. It's funny because prong collars actually are used for sport dogs to build frustration and aggravation, and they're used in the opposite to reinforce aggression. And we use it the opposite way. And that is it. Thank you for asking me that question, and thank you for watching my Periscopes. I appreciate it. That's
awesome.
all I have to say.
So we have 1, 2, 3, I think 3 or 4 more questions. We're gonna try to burn through these. I know it's a longer episode. Forever Canine. Hi Blake, I'm new to following you and your free info is super helpful. Thank you. My dog has fear bit 5 people who came into my house. I've asked many trainers and posted on forums like Learberg. Most, if not all, have said this behavior cannot be changed because it's bad nerves, genetics from a backyard breeder. We've had a full obedience training board and train on e-collar and prong. He's an incredible dog when working with me or people he knows. Basic commands, long duration, place, heel, and recall. All are pretty good, but when faced with strangers coming inside, you know what? Leave your mic on, because you might answer this too. Because it helps with Samson actually. You know, it's like pretty spot on. Very skittish and fearful and barks, which leads to the biting of people, which when he came too close, too soon or startled him or touched. But there has been instances where he's been able to get over it if the stranger was introduced properly. He can coexist with anyone he knows and all dogs. My previous trainer has told me that at this point, I can only manage the issue with strong structure and isolating him from strangers. Have you seen dogs fully recover from fear biting history and assimilate back in society with fully no issues? I want a second opinion. I spent thousands on training already, and I don't want to give up on him now. Okay, so before Andrew jumps into this, because there's a lot of similarities with Samson and nervous dogs, and also with Penny, who we just recently did a YouTube video out. A couple of things. Stop putting your dog in positions where you know it's gonna fail. Don't set your dog up for failure. Slowly, gradually build on that. From a management point of view, I personally believe that an entire dog's life is a form of management. The degree of management is based on where you get the dog. Are you micromanaging the dog? Are you managing a problem? Are you managing good behavior? Do you know when to advocate for your dog? Do you know when to push? Those are things that you have to look for. There might be some genetics and bad nerves. I'm gonna go ahead and say that most internet people, unless you're talking with like Learberg trainers, and there's a good amount of them that I know personally, like actual trainers that are suggesting this. If it's just a Learberg forum where it's like an internet trainer who's like an internet professional because they have Siri and like a keyboard, most people don't work with problem dogs, so they're going to tell you to med your dog. They're going to tell you to euthanize your dog. They're going to tell you this and that. That's also why you've never heard of them, right? So it's very important to know that. There's some degree of truth that if you have like a little bit of nervous dog, that's who your dog sort of is. Like I know some people who are very outgoing. When I bring them to the loud New York City, Miami club, they're gonna meet everybody, this and that, mingle, they're gonna network. And there's some people who are really, really friendly, but when they're faced, I guess not with adversity, but when they're in a scenario or a situation where they don't know people, they're a little bit more shy and a little bit more hermit until you get to know them. So you have to understand that and find that balance. That's very important. But as far as introducing techniques and knowing how to progress with that, that's where, he's gonna lay back down, that's where Andrew's gonna kind of tie into this here. So I don't know if you wanna hop back into the seat here. Stealing my water.
A little bit to add on to that is, chances are in the Litterberg forums, these people are probably dog trainers, but they only work with, for the most part, like sport dogs. Extremely confident dogs, extremely driven dogs.
Great point.
Basically even, very good dogs and very easy to train dogs, right? And they probably do train dogs that are skittish, fearful, et cetera, for boarding trains and whatever, et cetera. But they're only working with the dog for a very limited time. They're trying to solve the problem in 2 to 5 weeks, right? Whereas you, if you have a skittish dog and stuff, they don't own those dogs. They don't own those dogs for the entirety of their life. So they've never been able to really be on the dog's time frame, right? This stuff isn't a 5-week fix. You have to. You're basically on the dog's time, right? All you can do is set up the dog for success, manage the dog, and help them make good decisions, right? And encourage good decisions and make them comfortable in exploring more and making better decisions. So for Samson, he always gets set up for success. I do manage him. He will get managed. I don't put him in situations where I think he'll fail, and he always has an out. So at no point does he feel like he has to bite or act out. There's always another outlet, another safe outlet. Walking away is usually it, right? If something's too uncomfortable, you walk away. And once dogs know they have their option, they're much more comfortable to explore other options and to sort of push their limits, because they can always go away if it's too much for them.
That's where you come in though too, because you have to make sure that like when they choose that option, that you're there to advocate and step in to make sure that option actually works.
Yeah, so you're basically going to continue to manage and it's going to be a management thing for a while, but you can always push for more and advocate and continue to reinforce good behaviors and continue to reinforce bad behaviors. And it may take a while, who knows? It's on the dog's time. But if you continue to reinforce good behaviors and punish bad behaviors, you should see progress, right? Because you're in it for the lifetime of the dog. Whereas the people giving you advice have to train the dog in a set amount of time, right? So stick with it. Don't expect to see results right away, and take your time. Just make sure you keep advocating for your dog.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing that Andrew, he pointed out, there's basically 3 choices. In the beginning, it's you're teaching them like 3 sort of things. You're teaching them what they can do that they were not aware of. They weren't aware that there was another choice, alternative choice. You're also advocating for them and not putting them in things that are too challenging. And you're talking about biting here. This is not something like, I just prefer you don't do this. Like, it's like, this cannot happen because this could be life or death. You're also punishing behaviors and making it clear, this is not allowed. I'd rather you be nervous and scared to make the choice to bite someone and go, ooh, you know what, I don't want to do that, but I've done this and this has worked for me, and then I'm going to reward the bejesus out of you. Very, very important. Very important. Let's see where we are. Hey. A lot of questions. Almost done here, guys. Okay, so Dog Mom Problems, Happy New Year. I've watched episode 25 and plan on working with the tips you gave there. Just got back from the holidays in Florida, and my pit bull and I had the worst experience ever thanks to irresponsible dog owners. Usually he's great Usually it's a great break, but this time every day we had an issue with dogs running from backyards, crossing roads. My boy had never had things like this happen. His dog exposure has always been at daycare, training classes, at our rally competitions. So all behaved dogs with awesome owners. On my last days there, he started acting out on the leash. None of the dogs ever touched him. I stepped in, kicked, yelled, left the area as quickly as possible, but it seems we now have to work through this. I want my boy solid. Any suggestions? The first thing I'm gonna do is you can't panic. Even the way this is written, and I'm glad you wrote it. I'm not trying to say like don't feel that you can't come back for more questions. Certainly do, but you have to relax more. You're probably way more anxious than you realize, and obviously rightly so. Shh. Hey, I think this guy's a little cold. Could we get him a small placemat and put him over there? Come here, bud. He can't handle. Nah, we're just gonna place him right over there.
Go, Peters.
Yeah. We have like another heater over there. There's heat there. There's heat there.
Good.
And
Down.
he's one of the dogs that actually gets cold, like
Good.
always. He can get cold in like Florida. So a few things. Shh. Hey. Stop. A few things. Don't just watch episode 25. Literally go from, I'd say episode 3 or 4, because the first 2 to 3 were a little and watch through all of them. Everything that you're asking will tie into this, with what you need to teach on a foundation level beyond being in the perfect world environment, right? That would be my suggestions for you, because it's gonna not only work on your dog and what you need to teach, it's gonna get you better, more confident, and it's gonna get your timing better. Your awareness and timing is important. Once you're speaking clear and you know how to speak clear, even more clear than you currently think you are, when your awareness and timing is on point, it's a game changer. And your dog will be more comfortable knowing it can choose to listen to you and ignore that. It first has to know that that's an option, right? Because it is tough. It is really, really tough. And I would really suggest, if you haven't, you're doing good, but if you haven't, remote collar training your dog, because that's going to also help with a lot of things as well. Portogram pup. Our 1.5-year-old mini Aussie is aggressive to strangers and people when with owners. It is aggressive to strangers and people when with the owners, in or outside the home. Yet, that was a little confusing, sorry. Yet, he's fully functional and polite at daycare and boarding. Polite at daycare. And has ever only had a few timeouts or breaks for being too excited. So definitely not fully polite. That's impulse control, anxiety, and working on urge. That's important. Plays a little rough, otherwise he's fine. Positive reinforcement, exposure, and training has only made a small difference, mainly in our expectations, lowering them to accept that he just isn't cuddly to dog strangers. He's worse on leash. Meet strangers in home through the crate, then lets out. Stop. Okay, so hold on, let me finish reading this. Will make contact with mouth if he's allowed when above threshold, which he happens when he sees new objects he's never seen before, especially when they come through the door. Okay, so the first questions that I spoke about with place and creating the foundation are a must. You have to teach that. Stop letting your dog meet or let people come up to him in the crate. He has to learn how to not care, not be concerned. You need to disrupt inappropriate behavior and correct inappropriate behavior, especially once the other alternative options, what the dog should be doing is taught and known. If that's successful, get that pretty solid, get that known, and then move from there. Go into the suggestion that I had a couple questions ago, where eventually once recall and everything is good and there's no concern, you take that state of mind and you have the dog maintain that throughout. Have the dog maintain that throughout. They can come, recall's good, take food without being overwhelmed, go back, and certainly disrupt inappropriate behavior where it's meaningful. You will not disrupt me speeding on a highway if you pull me over and say, don't do it again, here's a $5 ticket. The reward outweighs the consequence, right? If I knew that every single time I tried to rob a bank, If I was in the middle of the act and the cops showed up and they go, hey, put that down, don't do it again, and I go, oh, well, you got me, all right, and I was able to walk scot-free because they just said don't do it, I would continue to try because it's a win-win. Even furthermore, if they said don't do that again, here's some money because you clearly need it, here's money to not do it, drop it, go away, and don't do that again, it's a win-win for me because if I lose, I'm $100 richer. If I win, I'm a millionaire, so I'm gonna keep trying. Your dog there has to be a reason. The reason I haven't tried to rob a bank is because the consequence for that outweighs the reward in my opinion, and I can make money in a lot of easier ways, right? So I also don't know how to pick locks, so otherwise maybe I would try.
One thing to add on, I would say is very simple, probably very similar process to whatever the positive only stuff they want you to do, except instead of allowing the lunging and the snapping or whatever, you disagree with that and you teach an alternative behavior. You take that off the table right away. So at the very worst, the dog's walking away and scramming instead of biting and lunging. So that option's like taken off the table right away. And then you can build the dog's confidence and try to form different habits and get the dog friendly, etc. But you shouldn't have to put up with any snapping or anything like at all.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so the next one, Beth Firmasu. Hi there, guys. Do you have any tips on how to introduce a prospective new shelter dog to your current dog? My blue heeler is fairly indifferent to other dogs. I've only seen her play with the dogs she was rescued with. It's like she doesn't understand that she can play with other dogs too. And the dog I'm looking to adopt supposedly really likes other dogs, but doesn't get stressed and excited. But gets stressed and excited on leash if she can't meet the other dog right away. That's probably not the ideal dog for you to adopt unless you're going to teach that dog impulse control, and then you're going to teach your other dog something else. So we're going to walk you through this here in a second. Hey, stop. Let me see, excited Alicia. Having the first introduction in some random room in a shelter is not ideal, but is required. I just want to give them every chance for success. I'm gonna go ahead and say the first thing that you should see, this is our way. I mean, reading in a room, that's really stupid.
You're flooding your dog,
yeah, like you're flooding your dog, like that's not smart. There's situations where flooding works and flooding is suggested. This is definitely not one of them. So get both dogs good on leash pressure. They can walk, they can follow leash pressure even when seeing something else. The other dog that you're thinking about adopting needs to know how to choose you over that. If it's, and go back to the other episodes to see what I mean about leash pressure and following softly. That's a must. Your dog, let me kind of read your dog here. Your dog needs to learn how to first tolerate and coexist. So you're pressuring your dog without forcing them to play. So what I would do before anything else, and more often than not, this is really all you need to do. It's very rare that you need to go farther or further. What's the correct word for that? Farther or further?
Further.
Further? Is he wrong? I don't know. But when the dogs are good on leash pressure, they're good on walking individually, they're good on seeing things from a distance and continuing. All you're doing is you're walking them together. Start on a walk. It's not about them meeting. It's not about that. They're meeting by working together, right? You focus their heads on where they're going. You're not keeping leash pressure on. When they're doing that, you're disagreeing. You're saying focus on the task at hand. Keep that going. Keep that going. Walk comfortable. They're sitting together. They're not allowed to mind each other. They're just already used to each other. Then they can place and hold position next to each other when it's not about them. They're already meeting. They're used to each other. They're like, hey, I don't know if I like you or not, but I can definitely work with you. Cool. No big deal. Once the dog's state of mind change, 8, if not 9 out of 10 dogs will end up being fine with each other. They might smell each other, they might coexist, they might care, they may or may not play. The play comes later. And then what you can do is you can do some of the stuff that Andrew's done with counter conditioning with Samson is you want to get this food, you need to learn to allow this dog to smell you. You need to learn to maybe smell that dog, and doing that, being interested in the dog, letting the dog be interested in you, where I have you on leash to disagree if you're going to try and snap or be silly. I'm also not going to let, this is important, that other dog be rude. You got to balance this out because now you're in a position where you're training 2 dogs. You want more or less a polite dog. It's really hard. You want the other dog to come in politely, can go away. The dog that is your first dog needs to not spin and go crazy. When they allow that, boom, you reward for food. And then they start realizing, oh, when I tolerate this, I get this food, cool. The next step is curiosity. A little bit of curiosity, boom, we reward. Whoa, wait a minute, you mean if I'm curious, I get that food if I do this, and then they learn to love it. More often than not, you don't even need to do that because that'll come naturally. There are some situations where you do, right? And I think that's pretty much does that, or answers that. This guy's gonna scratch and then he's gonna go right down. Or what I can do is I can help him out. But you know what? That's it. I know this is a long episode. Thank you guys. I will see you guys next week on episode 27.